We got some hand reviews, and we're gonna go over the schedule a little bit. Let me just turn this down. Why does it always skip a beat? There it goes. Pocket Ninners. Why is this sound all messed up? My God. Alright, it's only messed up on my end. Pocket Nines. See a raise, a monstrous raise. Now, granted, you should be raising bigger because it's so early in the tournament, but this is kind of too big. I think 3.5 is as big as you ever really want to go. You go too big, you kind of start making people think you don't have anything good. Queen, Queen, 4. Nines are still pretty good here. We see a bet now, half pot. This is that half pot means nothing bet. Don't use half pot bets. Ace on the turn. Player now checks. I think this is one where we may have been beat, and the ace is the worst card, and plus we can have some queens. I think this is one where the player could have had tens or jacks, honestly. There's a slight chance he had kings, but I kind of abandoned that. So what I decided to do was set up a 2-street barrel. So now this is a little bit less, or a little bit more than half pot. It's actually a little smaller than I like. I probably should have gone like 13 or 13 and a half big blinds. But for my purposes, this was fine, because if this gets called, that puts 47 in the pot, and I have 57 behind, and I'm just going to overbet jam the river on all rivers. But he folds, and I think he saw the setup coming. I think because I didn't go the standard 2/3, it looked stronger. Like if I had bet like 18 or even 20 here, I think it looks like one pair. And if that one pair is an ace, then fine. But it's not always convincing to a pair of kings right here. But I like that I bet here. I think this was an easy opportunity to take it away because his pre-flop raise and his flop bet kind of told the story. I really think he had a pair here and just really hated it when the ace came off in addition to the queens. So just a nuance. Better to bet there than get beat by a pair of tens or jacks or something. Ace queen off. We go ahead and make a standard raise. Get 3-bet. This is an interesting one. From the small blind. Nothing too wrong with it. It's a straight 3x 3-bet. When you're coming out of the small blind, you want to add a little pepper to this. So your raise should be about 8.5 to 9 big blinds because you are at a positional disadvantage. But because he didn't, we can easily call. Player checks flop. And this is one where it's good to just go ahead and bet. If he has ace-king here, he's not going to love this. And we just go ahead and bet right at it like we have a pair. Right around, 60% pot, I think is enough. And it works. And this is one where we were able to immediately take it away because the player just told us what was going on with his hand. If I had to guess, I would have said that was ace-king exactly. Queen 4 suited. This was an interesting one. I think I did this because I wanted to run the numbers. Player limped out of first. We were under the gun +1. Yeah, I wanted to run the numbers on this. Let me bring up Jonathan Little's tools tool over here. Queen 4 suited. I mean, I was doing it more so because of the table dynamic. You can see that we're a little bit further into the tournament. We were kind of near the bubble in this one. Not really, but it was definitely the consideration. And the player limping out of first had a limping range. So he had a VPIP of 38 and only a preflop raise of 8. So this is a loose, passive player. This is a player who's just limping a lot of pots. So when somebody limps out of first and they have those kind of numbers, you got to realize that they're not doing it with aces. They're not doing it with kings. Like, he's just doing it because that's what he does. He doesn't have positional consideration. You know what I'm saying? He's just, I have 9-10 of diamonds. That's a good hand. And he just limps it out of first when it's just like the most wrong thing you can do. All right. I'll move this over here. So I had how many blinds? What did I have? About 13 and a half. So we'll go 12 big blinds. My position is under the gun +1 versus. I mean, I guess it's raise first in, right? Because there is no versus a limp. I mean, you don't even consider that. So raise first in, queen 4 suited is a fold at 12 big blinds under the gun +1, which it obviously should be. But I kind of wanted to construct his range. You know what? It's not really worth it to construct his range. I know it's a fold, but this is just a good example of taking advantage of the HUD right here. There's a lot of players who are limping. This player's 57-26. I mean, it's just kind of crazy, but we'll see. I don't know why I marked it. Maybe I mismarked it. I mean, I know why I'm jamming there, but it doesn't really cause for review. So we see it raised to 2.4. Again, high VPIP, high preflop raise. This player's playing a lot of hands and raising them all. So he's raising a little bit smaller. If you're getting this particular with 2.4 big blinds, you probably just want to go 2.5 because this is just, you're gilding the lily here by saving 1/10 of a blind. See a call here, and yeah, I remember this one. This is why I wanted to see the raise. So now you see my squeeze is 12.06. So I wanted to show you how I came up with that. So we bring up the calculator. There's the big blind plus the antes plus 2.4 plus 2.4 plus if I were to call 2.4, which means this is the total, and then you add the call that I made in. So we would have to add in +2. So we're counting everything and then adding my call again, because this is the current pot, and then my participation takes my extra call, plus 2.4. So pot size bet was about 11.56. Because I'm out of position, I went just a half a blind higher. You can see 12.06, and it gets the fold. This is how you make a proper squeezing range. And, you know, if this player had rejammed, then yeah, obviously I'm folding. But this is a very safe steal. You can see by the numbers here. And this player, too, you know, he's pretty active and, you know, more aggressive. But when he's just calling, he doesn't have anything good. So, just something to point out. Where is it? There it is. A6 offsuit. Interesting. So we see a min raise here and a call here. I decided to go ahead and ram a lamb because my feeling was that A6 offsuit, I would jam this at 20 big blinds. So I wanted to run that. 20 big blinds from the small blind versus a raise from the, what was he in the cutoff? A6 off. It's a fold. Yeah, it's a trash hand. 25? There's a little bit of 3-bet in there when you get up in blinds. What if you go down? Yeah, it's still a fold. It's a very trash one, but this was a situational thing. So my jam here was because if I was to 3-bet here, it would be 6, 7, 8, 10 big blinds. And anytime you're 3-betting for more than a third, because I would be stealing, right? I would be putting on the squeeze. And my general rule is if I'm going to 3-bet and it costs a third of my chips or more, I'm just going to go all in. So when I did the math, it came out to about 10. And I said, you know what? If that's the case, if I want to go for it here, I got to jam all this. So I came up with the right answer. I think this is a much easier jam when you have 20 big blinds. And I think it actually might be more successful if you have 20 big blinds. But in this exact situation, you know, players were playing a lot of pots. They were raising a lot of pots. This player was more passive, but he's still playing a lot of pots. He had a lot of chips. This guy was kind of squeezable. This kind of makes sense to me. So it was a good example of a situational thing where a real trash hand and we were able to steal one. But just an interesting thing to point out. I marked a lot of hands yesterday. It was a weird day, but I did very well. So we're in the big blind with King Queen, and we see a raise to 3.6, and this is ridiculous. We're later in the tournament. You can see the average stack is, well, 38.71. What is that? That's yeah, that's, I don't have that, and I'm doing pretty well. The only player who has that is this guy because he's deep stacked on the table. So we're pretty deep into the tournament here. You know, like we're almost through late registration at this point. So this player with the big stack raises on the button, and I pointed out at the time that this raise is too big to be a good hand. So I just went ahead and called it because I feel like I'm ahead of the entire range here. We nail a queen. It goes check, check, of course. Turn comes off. I check it again. Player then bets half pot. This means nothing. I decide to just call. River comes off, and I check, and I figured if he's bluffing, he must want to bluff again. And he bets half pot again. This bet also means nothing. There's no real reason to raise. We just go ahead and call. There's a slight chance we're beat, but I think in-game I said the only thing that really beats us is weird sets. And, you know, Jack 10. So we got the max, and we really hurt this guy, and he didn't learn from this experience. He kept raising on the button on my big blind, and we kept playing pots like this. And he would win a pot versus somebody else, then he would just funnel it right to me the same way. And this was a good example of why you don't want to 3-bet versus this huge... Because he was just trying to steal. You know what I'm saying? But he doesn't get the concept that if you do something out of the ordinary, it looks suspicious. So him raising to 3.6 doesn't make me think he has a stronger hand. It truthfully makes me think he has a weaker hand. That's what bad players do. They bet bigger with their weak shit to bluff. And you don't need to do that. If he just made it 2.5, I probably would have 3-bet. Then he can call it, and then the queen comes off. We might play the same size pot, but at least he would have proper equity and position, and he'd have a chance to bluff me off. Like, this is a tough river for one pair if he makes the right move. But just didn't have it in him. Ace-9 suited. Let's see. Under the gun, we min-raise. This is just to see a flop, basically. Call. Get an ace. So I decided to bet big here for the exact purposes of what I'm doing. I have an ace. It needs protection. That's what I'm doing. I don't really feel like I'm up against a better ace except exactly ace-10 at any point. So I think betting here is good, and we're protecting against the flush draw. Now, this hand gets a little weird because player calls, turn comes off, and we now pick up the open-ender, and I decide to now bet 2/3 pot. And my feeling was I'm leveraging my whole stack at this point. I think it was, now that I think about it, the player was a little bit more draw heavy than he should be, and I think this is one where he actually had the spade draw and decided to draw at that price. I mean, he was just stacked up. And then on the turn here, we made him realize that we're willing to play for our whole stack. It was confusing to me at the time because the price was so bad on the flop to do this. It's like, you know, if I bet 5 big blinds, now you have to call 5 to win 12. And on the next card, you should know I'm betting again. So essentially, you're getting a single draw at spades if that's what you have, right? And that's 9 outs. That's 18%. You are not getting anywhere near what you need here. You know, you're getting like a third of what you need here. This is ridiculous. So, but I guess he was just chip drunk, you know, and then turn comes off, and it's like, unless we're up against a weird 2 pair like 8-7 or, you know, even 8-9, I guess he really can't continue. But when we bet big, it's just like, it was funny because I really half expected him to jam, and I was in game. I was like, I don't care what he does, I'm calling, because I have too many outs. A 9's good for me, a 10's good for me usually. You know, as long as I think a spade doesn't come off, I think I'm good. But it was really confusing to me, and this is kind of a reminder to me that players with a lot of chips will do dumb shit because they get chip drunk. Let's see. We see a raise and a call. We go ahead and defend the Jack 10. Flop comes off 5 deuce 5. Player C bets 4.11. This is a half pot bet again, and it doesn't mean anything. And I have a true trash hand. Player folds, and this is very floatable because this bet means absolutely nothing. And when they have nothing, those are the spots you want to look to bluff. Plus, my hand, this is one of the worst hands I'm going to be defending with this board. And it's really great to win these to balance out when you actually have some equity, like, 3-4 or something. So I call. The turn comes off a 6. Pretty good for our purposes. I check. Player, of course, checks back. River misses. And now all we got to do is just bet like we got it, About 2/3 pot. Nothing crazy. We don't have to bet 14 or 15 blinds to go ape shit. But 2/3 pot, we would do that with 3-4. We would do that with a 5. We would do that with pretty much anything here. And, he just folded pretty quickly. It's a good example of when being out of position in the blind really works for you because your range is the deck. Let's see here. See a raise out of first. I have 9-7 suited. I decide to go ahead and call it because I have a lot of blinds and the good expected value of the hand hitting. We'll go to a 4-way pot. 4 King 6. Usually good for the opener. But it checks around. And this was an example of yesterday morning we had played a hand where Jonathan Little had a similar hand, but it was kind of different. Like if you put the ace-king in my hand and put the 9-7 on the board, it's a different scenario. But I saw it as an opportunity to set up a turn bluff and river barrel. Because in a 4-way pot, that can be very scary to people. So the jack hits the turn, and I decide to bet. Or I thought I bet. No, but I didn't. This player bets 3. This player calls 3. Why did I mark this one? I had another 9-7. This isn't it? No, that was 9-7 of hearts. What's going on with this one? Oh, shit. That's why. Wow. So that's what happened. That's why I marked it. Because on the turn, I thought this was the one that I set up for a 2-street barrel. But apparently it wasn't. So this player in the big blind bet 3 big blinds, which he's doing what I was doing, right? But this is the move I was looking to make. But for some reason I checked it. Normally I would do that here. And then when the river comes off, he can bet 12 here, right? He can bet 12 here and attempt the bluff. This player only has 20 big blinds. And this is one of those you go, well, if he raises, obviously I can't, obviously I should just call anyway. But you don't have anything. So if it's a pure bluff here, I think you make this bet to look like a value bet bluff. So you bet like 11 or 12. And then when this guy with the nut flush, jams, you just sit there, hem and haw, and then fold. This is an example of a bad move because there's 15 in the pot and you're putting the guy all in when the board changed dramatically. If the river was a heart, yes, because nobody bet the flop, you could definitely have the hearts in the big blind. If the river is an ace, believe it or not, you can do it because of the straight draws. If the river is, but the only thing he's representing here is exactly 5-7 or a flush, and you don't really want to represent those because those draws when they come in, they're in. You know what I'm saying? So, and plus his hand Queen 7 didn't really have any removal. It had blockers to 5-7, I guess, but you don't want to have the queen in your hand because you want hands like Queen 10 and Queen 9 and even Queen Jack. You want those hands to be out in the field so you can bluff them off and just representing the strength of the king. But this is not the way you would play ace king or a king queen here, or even 2 pair here. You wouldn't play it this way. You would have some concern for the flush draw out there, especially in a multi-way pot. So this is a bad example. I thought this was, I had a 9-7. I had a 9-7 that I clipped that was that bluff thing yesterday. So I guess I should have watched that first. Let's see. I opened a 2.5 in under the gun +1. We see a call. Queen on the flop, pretty good. I decided to go ahead and just bet standard, 1/3 pot, a little bit less than that. We get called. Queen on the turn. I mean, here's the thing. If I'm being called by somebody because I just c-bet, that queen doesn't affect them at all. So I feel like I can keep betting because if they think, well, I'm going to take a card off because who knows if he has a queen, and then the board pairs queens, you go, come on, how does this guy have a queen? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what gets into players' heads. He decides to go ahead and call, and on the river, I decide to check it because I realize that I'm this far ahead, and this is giving him an opportunity to bluff when he has flush draws. He can have some like pocket tens that go for value, things like that. I don't know though. I mean, this player wasn't that slick, but you can see his high VPIP. He could definitely have flush draws, and he has a lot of chips. He's definitely, not any slouch at any point. So he has the ability to bluff. He went ahead and bluffed, or he bet this super huge. This is what you would do with a bluff. It's also what you would do with a value hand. The bet was so perfect, I actually said in game, well, I might be beat here sometimes by a set, but I just absolutely can't fold. And this is not the board you want to bluff because you're representing too small of a range. You know what I'm saying? If this queen wasn't on the turn, because this is one where you're going to get hero called a lot when you make this bluff. So you have to have, I think pocket tens can bet here, but you're kind of value bet bluffing. So you would be betting 18 at the most, right? You know what I'm saying? Because if you got check raised, you would know you were beat. Of course, I called it, and the player has just nothing. And he had the draw to the draw. So if a spade had hit, I really do endorse that bluff. Like if the river was the 8 of spades, then he knows I can't have the nut flush. I could still have a full house, but he knows I can't have the nut flush. So his bluff is far more successful. In game, I'm not folding because with no aggressive action on the flop or the turn, my trip queens are just way too strong. And it would be a hell of a coincidence if I was up against the suited ace of spades at that moment with that betting pattern. But this is an interesting example. Like I said, he missed the draw to the bluff. He was on the draw to a bluff, and he missed it. You know what I'm saying? This is just, you just don't want to bluff against such a narrow range. If I have a value hand that I'm betting, you shouldn't be bluffing me here. Like, you have to be convinced that I have ace-king exactly. You know what I'm saying? And I think people just jump to that way too easily. Pocket sevens, we see a raise out of first. I decide to go ahead and just call it. Flop comes off jack 10-6. It checks, and I check back. I don't really feel like there's much reason to bet because this favors our range versus his unless he's got an overpair. He bets the turn for that precious half-pot bet. It just means nothing. It never means anything. I call. Jack on the river. I mean, who's more likely to have a jack here? But I don't think there's any reason to bet. And the player has king-queen. And it's like, if he had bet the flop and bet the turn, like, why didn't you bet the flop? Like, I don't understand. Like, if he bets the flop, right, he can have all overpairs. He can have ace-jack. He can have everything. I mean, I might take a card off, but in all honesty, I only have 2 big blinds in this pot. If he just bets 2 1/4, 275, I'm gone. I think it's just you just pitch it because you just don't know where you're at, and you should be facing additional aggression. When he checks the flop to take a free card, this isn't like this is the 10-6 of diamonds and the jack of spades, and he has the the king-queen of diamonds. This isn't like that where you have such a strong draw you want to keep going. This straight draw is not that strong. Granted, you have overcards, but if you hit your king, can I never have like queen 9? Can I never have king jack? Can I never have 10 jack? Can I never have the exact same hand and just stuff it to you? Like, this is not the one to check the flop. This is one where you should be betting. If you raised out of first with this, which you should on his stack, you should be betting. He was just trying to play way too safe. So when he bets the turn, he just costs himself money. And again, it's that half-pot bet. Half-pot bets don't mean anything. I bet half-pot when I want to get called. But I see so many players bluffing for half-pot. It's fucking hilarious. Queen 5. I don't remember this one. So, I'm in the big blind. This player, there's no small blind. A lot of players will just take shots when there is no small blind because they know that it's not worth playing for. But that's exactly the reason why you shouldn't do it. It's not worth playing for. The extra half blind being here makes your bet so undervalued. And he was too specific. This 2.28 bullshit, this is too specific. And this player was playing a lot of hands, as you can see. So all these things factored into my calling along with this player. See, look, 31% of hands, 31% of hands. I'm at 19. Like, there was a lot of 32, 43. Like, there's a lot of players here that are just playing way too many hands. And especially in this tournament, it was kind of interesting. I decided to go ahead and call to defend. The 6, 8, 10 comes off. Not great for me, right? I check. The original opener checks. Now, if he bets here, he's going to win this pot about 80% of the time. Granted, this isn't good for the range that he's repping, but he's in the cutoff. He can have all the 10s. He can have overpairs. He can have ace 8. He can have diamonds. He can have, all these things that are just crushing the equity. And what can we really have? We can really only have, this player can really only have big cards, like 2 Broadways. And I can have, anything for sure. But you want to start betting so that I don't realize my equity. So he really missed a great c-bet spot here, even though it doesn't seem like it would be because of board texture. This is one where, because of the exact situation and his position, he can be strong on this board, and we can be very weak. Especially this player can be very weak. Like, if this player has Queen Jack, you know what I'm saying, or King Jack or something like that, he may just call to try to hit a pair pre-flop. He could even have a hand like pocket 5s or something and just have decided not to jam for 20. Passive players who limp a lot and call a lot don't jam very, properly because they don't know they're supposed to. So it goes check, check. The turn comes off a 9. I decide to go ahead and bet the little bit less than a third pot because it's right about a third pot. Because this is the one where I'm setting up the flop bet or the turn bet, flop check, turn bet, river jam. And I think I need to bet to take that away. We get a fold, and the short stack calls. This is the worst case scenario because he's the guy most likely to have a 7 here. But the river comes off the ace of diamonds, and my thinking at the time was that if this guy had a flush draw, he would have jammed it on the turn. He would have probably bet the flop, and he would have jammed it on the turn for sure. If he had a 7, I think he just jams the turn because he doesn't want this diamond to come off. So I think at best we're up against a second pair kind of situation, like, Jack 9, something like that. You know what I'm saying? He could have a hand, I guess, as bad as I guess he could have 10 Jack, but he should have probably bet the flop. But maybe 9-7. Well, 9-7 makes a straight on the flop. So yeah, I guess it's just like Jack 9 or like Queen 10 or something, maybe something like that. I don't know. It's just weird. I just knew he didn't have a straight or a flush, so I went ahead and bet. And this is that good 2/3 size pot bet, and it looks like a value bet. It looks like I had a 7 on the turn or a flush draw, and he just folds. Just got to bet twice. It's a nice little play there. Where is that 9-7 that I had? I know I marked it from yesterday. Aces. Oh, I remember why I got So this is one where I do this very rarely, but the big blind, look at this, I have 89 blinds. I had just tripled up, and this player is on a jam stack. This player can definitely, over jam when he has, King, Queen or something here, and try to force me out. So this is one of the very rare exceptions where I will call with pocket aces in the small blind, because I'm so stacked up and they're so short. Comes off 5-4-3. I decide to go ahead and check. It goes check, check, check. Turn comes off. I decide to bet. And you can see now I'm not betting small. I'm betting to protect my one pair hand. I think you would do this with a 9 for sure. You would do this with a 5, hand like ace 5, 5-6, sure. But it also works great for aces. Again, we get called by the short stack. And the other player folds, and the river comes off an ace. And now here's the thing. There are diamonds out there, and I thought about checking because those diamonds can look scary. But if you had a flush here, and the other guy only had 9 blinds left, would most people just put him in, or would they check to him and try to get him to pay off something, or would they bet smaller? So I decided to just go ahead and bet the pot and put him in. And he took a couple seconds and then he called. And my feeling was he can definitely have a pair here. And my man had ace-7 offsuit. He called us with a double gutty. He could get a deuce or a 6 for the nuts, pretty much. But when that ace hit, he just can't fold it because he only has 9 blinds left. And this is a good illustration of when to really not be afraid. And I thought about this one. I was just like, I'm going to check it, and then I stopped myself. I went, wait a minute. No, I'm not. That doesn't make sense. Hang on. He never has diamonds. I never have diamonds. Let's just jam it in. Because if nobody has diamonds, unless he has the random deuce, I win here 100% of the time. Like, what is he defending with a deuce that doesn't jam? He doesn't have pocket deuces. He doesn't have ace deuce. You know what I'm saying? Those hands jam pre-flop. Ace deuce suited, things like that. And he never had an aggressive action. Like, so the ace deuce is out, right? And what other deuces does he have? He just doesn't have any. I think my biggest worry here was 5-7, but we would have heard about it on the turn. You know what I'm saying? When we bet, he would have jammed, the 9 extra big blinds there instead of waiting. So this is one where we can never have a flush. Neither can he. And we should just always be jamming here because he never has a deuce. He never has a flush. So he can have some crazy 2 pairs. Like he could have the ace-5, I guess. I mean, he should be jamming it, but let's say he had, I don't know, just like he has, ace-7, something like that. But, yeah, this is definitely one to jam. Just because neither one of us can ever have a flush. And when that's the case, the top set wins. So we see a raise out of first position. There is no small blind. I decided to go ahead and 3-bet this one because I wanted to define the hand. I figured if this player 4-bet me, I would just kind of mull it over, but I don't have a lot of folds here with queens. It is scary when a player in first opens, especially with no small blind. That should be a stronger range. It really should be. Because it's not really worth playing for unless you have something good in your hand. But it goes back around to him. He calls. Flop comes off 238. You don't want to freak out at these moments. People tend to freak out and bet way too much. Like they bet 14 or 15 blinds. And then what good is that? You know what I mean? So unless he has aces or kings, what good is that? And if he does have aces or kings, what good is it? Because he's just going to beat you. So your bet can be reasonable. And as you can see, I use the half pot bet in order to get called. That's what I'm trying to do, is build this pot. Now, if he calls this one, there's almost no turn that I should fold. Almost no turn. I think exactly, what's the turn I should fold? I don't think there is one, honestly. Maybe a jack, because he could have pocket jacks. But at that point, am I trying to see sets? Like, that's just silly. So he just calls. He's got 14 blinds left. The turn comes off an ace, and people think this is a bad card, but let's think about it. This player started the hand with like 30 blinds, right? Yeah, 31 blinds. He then raised in first position to a standard 2 big blind open. I 3-bet him reasonably, not excessively, and he decides to call it. When you think about this scenario, most likely, what is this? And I think most people know this is a pair, most likely. It comes off deuce 3-8. He can definitely have an overpair, pair of 10s, pair of 9s. I don't know about jacks. I think jacks might just jam it pre-flop sometimes. Kind of depends. I don't think he ever has kings or aces. He can have ace-king sometimes. Ace-queen suited, I guess. Sometimes. But I really think those jam pre-flop if they want to continue. The bet just kind of leverages his whole stack. So I was feeling like it was a pair. So we bet the flop. He calls us. Now a pair of 10s would call here. A pair of 9s would call here. Not knowing if they were good, they would have to take a card off. This exact situation happened to me when I had 9s later in this tournament. And I had to make a call and then fold the turn. Turn comes off an ace. In what world does he have an ace? No world. He never has an ace here. Ace-king and ace-queen would jam it pre-flop, if anything. Ace-queen would not have continued on the flop, nor would ace-king. So ace-king jams pre, ace-queen folds flop. There's no world in which he has an ace here. So When he checks, I decide to go ahead and just jam all in, which this is one of those ones where I think jamming all in is better than just putting him in because it just looks like too automatic, right? If I had ace king, would I do this? No. I would have bet differently on the flop and now bet differently on the turn. So I'm not getting to this point with ace king. If I thought the half pot bet was there enough to squeeze him out, I would have made it, but I never make half pot bets. It's 1/3 or 2/3 on those flops. And honestly, if I have ace king on this 8 high flop, I'm betting 2/3 pot because it looks like an overpair. That's what I want it to look like. When I have the really strong overpair of queens, I don't want it to look like an overpair. I want other players to be involved with me. It's fine. So when we jam the turn, we're 100% secure in our hand, and our opponent never has an ace. Now, here's the thing where he gets a partial read if he's an okay player. He should know I never have an ace. Ever. So that's as far as he took the read. And he called. And pocket sevens. He heroed me. And he heroed me because I played the hand for value based on its strength. And this is an example of why you don't want to freak out with overpairs. Because I cleaned this guy out when I think most players would have gotten the 3-bet pre-flop and then overbet the flop and then just gotten 8 big blinds out of this guy and gone, oh, well, what can I do? He didn't have anything. You can do more. This is a lesson that was hard for me to learn, but I was misplaying my overpairs to a huge extent up until about a year or so ago when I started studying these spots more. So, interesting. Pocket fours. This is the hand. Okay, we're going to have to do some work on this hand. For a little bit of context, we are about 30 or 40 off the cash in this tournament. This is a $6 buy-in, 3K. You can see I have 57 big blinds. I am 4th in chips in the tournament, okay? Well, actually, we were closer to the bubble. Let me look. We were 21 from the money. Okay. I'm 4th in chips. Here's the literal chip leader, okay? This guy's got a little bit more than me, but we're very close to the money, okay? We're on the soft bubble, I would say. We're well into the soft bubble, about 20 players left. Raises out of first. Let's do ourselves a favor here. I wanted to do this fully. So, out of first position, 80 big blinds. Like, he's got a ton here. He's got 93. But out of first, under the gun, raise first in. These are your hands. Okay? These are the hands you're doing that with. Now I'm going to enter these in Equilab. This is what I wanted to do. So I want to enter this in Equilab to get the true GTO range and how we play against it. Okay? So let's add them to the thing. It's 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 10, 9, Jack 9, Jack 10, Jacks, Queen 9, King 9, Ace 9, all the way over here, over to King 8 here. We go all the way here, we go all the way here, we go all the way here, and we go down to Ace 10 off. Okay. This is a proper GTO range under the gun with inf blinds. Now, occasionally he's going to raise pocket fours, but I have pocket fours, so we'll just leave it out. Okay? This is the exact range. We're going to apply it. My exact hand. Where is it? My exact hand is the... Oh, wait a minute. I want this one. Close that. The 4 of spades. Where is the thing? 4 of spades, 4 diamonds. All right. I'm entering this on the side in Equilab. Okay. Now, so we call with the 4s. Pretty good opportunity. Get a call on the button. That's pretty awesome. So not only that, we have another stack bigger than us. This guy's like 3rd in chips, right? 4, 6, deuce. Player leads for 1/4 pot. This is one of two things: super weak or super strong. That's typically what this means. It's a standard c-bet. He's got 90 big blinds. Okay? He's going to be c-betting 100% of flops. And I believe, what was his c-bet percentage? 78%. So over all the hands I have on him, which is like 200 hands, he's c-betting 78% of the time. So obviously very frequently when he's raising out of first as the big stack. I decide to go ahead and call it. Let's put this in here. The board is the, let's see here, 4 of hearts, 6 of hearts, deuce of diamonds. Okay? Now let's evaluate this right here. We are 90% to win, okay? We have a set. It's important to remember. This is versus a perfect GTO range. Jack on the turn, okay? Now the player bets half pot. Again, this bet doesn't mean anything. Normally I would raise here, but the thing of it is, I truly feel like he's almost stone cold bluffing. I feel like if he had, most players, if they had a heart draw here, they would absolutely bet bigger. Or they would just check. Like you would either bet 10 big blinds to really try to go for the steal with your equity, or you would just check it to try to realize your equity with a flush draw. You should not be betting this with anything other than a pair. So I felt like he thinks that I may have a pair, but he's not really trying to protect it because he has a good one. So I feel like he has aces or kings a lot. I decide to go ahead and just call it. Now, in retrospect, what I should have done is raised here. I should have made it 20 big blinds to go. And the reason for that is because this pot is too small here to get the money in organically. So at this point, that puts 26 blinds in the pot. The only way I get the money in is if a raise happens. If he leads and I raise, or he checks, I lead, and he jams. It's very rare he's going to end up in a situation where he's going to be check jamming against me. So I feel like I'm just so far ahead. And as you can see, Jack of diamonds on the turn. You can see I'm 92% versus a perfect GTO range. So maybe we're just so far ahead we're not supposed to raise, but I think I should have pumped up the pot. Maybe I should have made it 15 big blinds. If I do that, then that puts 43 in the pot. Yeah, I can get it in pretty easily. Even if I raise to 13, or even if I just double this, it puts 40 in the pot, and I have 40 left. So, you know, but then again, if he thinks I'm ever full of shit, then we can get the money in pretty easily. So I decided to just call it because I felt like I was 93% ahead. And the river comes off, the King of Hearts. This is actually an amazing card. Because what hands is he raising under the gun that beat me now? Only kings, only jacks. I honestly know that kings would have bet bigger on the flop, and jacks would definitely have bet bigger on the turn or the flop because they were over pairs, right? Jacks might change the bet on the turn because they just spiked a set, but on the flop, they would definitely bet bigger because you wouldn't want this draw to be out there. So my most common belief here is that this player either has exactly aces or queens, or he has a busted diamond draw, which he should. And here's the thing, with the King of Hearts on the river, Ace King of Diamonds, which some players will play that way improperly when they pick up the draw on the turn, will now hero call on the river because they have a king, and they should be checking because it is a dangerous board. They should be checking and just go into check call mode with a king here. It's very likely. Okay? On the river, King of Hearts. $86%. Okay? So we go down a little versus a perfect GTO range because all the suited combinations are in there, right? But still, he checks. I decide to bet half pot. I'm just trying to get the money in. I'm trying to look like a bad bluff. Now, if I had bet, I thought about betting even less than this, betting like 8 big blinds and getting him to jam on me, which is something that I would have done a ton of times in order to induce a bluff. But this half pot bet, I just felt like versus this player was going to piss him off. And if he had a king, like king, queen, or ace, king, he would absolutely turn it into a bluff, especially if he had the ace, king offsuit with the ace of hearts, right? He could absolutely jam that for bluffs. Well, he does put me all in, and you can see I'm supposed to call. I'm supposed to call. My odds, the pot odds I'm getting are 2.76 to 1. I have to call this. I'm calling 31 blinds, so let's see here. I'm going to do the math for you. So I have 31.85 blinds left, right? So that means 31.85. That's the bet I'm facing, plus 27.04, plus 14.52, plus the 31.85. I have to call 31.85 to win 105.26. So now, check this out. $31.85 divided by 105.26. I only have to be right 30% of the time to make this call. In game, I knew this. I stand by it. And I am in a very rare scenario here. Because I don't know how often this ever happens that the player on the flop bets small into 2 players. That's usually either a very strong hand or nothing. The turn bets half pot, which always means nothing. And then on the river, checks. And then facing a bad bluff size, jams with a hand that can beat me. And this is for the chip lead just before the cash. About 18 players, 20 players to the cash, somewhere in there. 10 Jack of Hearts. So this is a hand that I lost, and I did pretty much bubble this tournament. But I wanted to run it down. I stand by it. You have to stand by it. You can only do what you can do with the information at your disposal. Now, if we look at it in an omniscient manner, okay, where, let's leave these cards up. If we look at it in an omniscient manner, opening in first with Jack 10 suited with his stack size, absolutely reasonable. It's in the range. Reasonable. He flops the heart draw. This small bet is a big mistake. He should be betting bigger here. Here's the thing. He should either be betting bigger or checking. When you have this draw, you want to bet with your best made hands and draws and check with all your marginal made hands. So if he bets bigger here, how often do these players just fold? And if you're relying on making a flush to win this hand, you are then gambling. That's what this bet is. This is a pot builder. And you're just betting into a monster. So when we call, that's fine. Now the turn comes off and he makes a pair. He should be more worried about us having a draw than anything. And now he's actually beating that. If we have the suited ace 5 of hearts, he should be betting that, right? He should bet 10 big blinds or more here. But again, he's just doing it like he's invulnerable. And this is so dumb. This is the worst play you can make. Then, on the river, with the third nuts, in a scenario where I can have the heart draw all day long, I can have the suited ace all day long, he decides to check to trap me with the third nuts. You don't trap with the third nuts. It's not a thing. Maybe you do it with the nuts, the absolute nuts here, because you induce a bluff. But when I bet like this, he totally falls for it and thinks it's a value bet bluff. And then he just jams. I'm going to have the nuts here pretty much. When I don't have a set here, I'm going to have the nuts here. And here's the other thing. He should be leading this river because now, if he gets raised, he should know that he's up against the bigger flush. He just basically said, fuck it, caution to the wind. It was a $6 tournament. He didn't care how close we were. He was running way too hot, and he felt invulnerable. The play I made is correct. And it sucks that I lost it. And you can say, well, Josh, the real world results are you lost. You made a mistake. I'm not supposed to be psychic. I'm supposed to play to the best of my ability with the information I'm given. This player didn't trick me. This player did several things wrong throughout the hand. He took every avenue he could to lose. I guarantee you, if the river came off and offsuit anything, not higher than a jack, if it was the 9 of clubs on the river, he would have bet. And he would have bet big. And I think it's 50-50 when he bets the river out with the top pair. When I raise, I can almost guarantee that this same player is going to call it off. Believe it or not, this was a guy on a Jamie Gold run playing just about as good. And I felt this hand because it was so close to the bubble, but I don't think I would change a thing because the next time I'm in this scenario, I'm going to win like by the numbers. 98% of the time. With this betting structure, I would imagine 98% of the time I win. Like, it's very rare this player shows up with a flush. It's just what they show up with is a bluff with the ace of hearts in their hand. So I stand by this wholeheartedly. It sucks to bust close to the bubble, especially when we were fourth in chips. But in order to live, we must be willing to die, as Umberto Brenes used to say. It is Sunday. I believe that's the last hand. Yeah. It is Sunday. I am playing today in a couple hours. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I'm going to pass you guys off to somebody else. Tonka's playing, so that's where everybody's going to be. So I'll see you guys later. Have a good day, man.